Hello, I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and I am here with Boots Riley from the amazing series I'm a Virgo. I don't think, Boots, that I can compare the style of this show to anything else on TV. It has this really unique, heightened sensibility, heightened reality to it, and I'm curious what inspired that kind of visual and tonal identity.
I think it all started when I didn't have enough money to go to the barber shop for my own haircut and was forced to use trimming clippers to cut my hair and create a hairstyle in which I ended up, I don't know what it was. It was a combination of a shag and a mohawk and something else that I'm embarrassed to look at the pictures of to this day. But I created my own style. And that's kind of like what this show is like you, 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 if you do the things that are truly you, truly what you're thinking about, truly what you care about, they might not be all the things that everybody has the categories in which people are used to talking about things. So they come out in this other way that feels like a new genre. Uh, but it's really just creating things.
Yes, and the centerpiece of the show, the lead is a giant, and I know you used a lot of practical ways to shoot that, a lot of forced perspective.
Forced
When you're
perspective, we also
Yes,
use puppetry, like actually had puppeteers, and a 13-foot tall puppet, and then half scale puppets of all the cast so that we could shoot over their shoulders to Jarrell, who's playing the giant.
mm,
Yeah, we pulled out every trick in the book. And of course, you still have to use VFX sometimes because you've got rigs holding things up or whatever, but it's in the parts of the screen that you're not used to. And you still get that, I want things to be visceral. I want it to feel like you see something and it's a texture that you're not used to. Because I think with CGI, we're not aware of what we're missing, right? Even on when you've got $50 million for one shot or something like that. We're not aware of how light works all the way yet. And I mean, like what the details that we're missing. And yeah, I like things to be messy and rough and jagged.
when you're using all those techniques, I imagine like some often you'll have actors who aren't actually looking at one another if they're delivering a line. So, is there a trick you use to keep them on the same page and keep that connection there with them?
Well, one, um, I made sure they hung out off camera a lot. And so beyond rehearsal, that they built a rapport with each other. And that was a little bit easy because it was during COVID, so they didn't have many other choices of who they could socialize with. And we shot uh, the lion's share of this in New Orleans. So they hung out together a lot. And but yeah, the anytime Jarrell was on the screen, he's here, supposed to be talking to this person, but we need to make him bigger. So they're not looking at each other. And so they really have to know each other's mannerisms and use a lot of imagination. But for us, the story of this giant was about him being isolated and searching for connection and working through all of his own problems in order to make connection and also larger connections in the world. So that disconnect that was created by that really worked for us.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite moments, especially from the first episode, is because there's a lot of big stuff that happens, it feels, but then there's just the moment of Cootie discovering the city, when he finally goes out on a drive, and there's so much awe and wonderment. He even says, "I feel small." for the first time. What was the process of creating that kind of montage and getting that emotion in there?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of what we show in that montage that happened, that was Jarrell feeling like, wow, I'm a big star all of a sudden because we had this whole, rig, and he's up high on this half scale car, and we just went out there. It wasn't guerrilla style, it was permitted, but we just went out there and everybody's looking at him. And and this was his action. A lot of that is his actual reaction to before he knew the cameras were shooting, to like being in this situation, right? And
Right.
and and then once then he figured out we're shooting. And I came up with that line right there, I feel small, just because of what he was looking at. And it actually, is what he would be feeling, is like that. It's a relief because he's trapped in this house where he has to bend over this all the time, that, you know, and what he's about to learn and learning right then is how big the universe is. And yeah, so a lot of the reactions of people on the street pointing to him, that was the reaction of the people on the street pointing at the 13-foot doll, like being like, what the fuck is that, um so
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting that you say you came up with that line in the moment because it must be a series with so many technical requirements and preparations to get those shots correct. So is it difficult to kind of still be in the moment when you have all of that technical aspect in your head?
I think you forget about what parts are. I mean, I'll put it like this: we had to storyboard almost every frame of the movie, right? I mean, of this show, um, just because, to save money, right? It was, what can we get away with only building this in half scale or doing that? Can we just build this wall and that and do this in that many shots or whatever? So much of it was planned out, but because it had taken so long, by then it's like somebody improvising on a crazy time signature. Like they've played this time signature so much that they can then play inside of it. And you know what? We also figured out, along with that, that we could it didn't have to be so exact, that we could mess around a little bit here and there, and there would be some feel, because with the forced perspective, you either have to be lit very brightly, or you have to, I mean, well, one, you if you want to do it all in one pass, you have to have deep focus. So for some things, they'll just light it very brightly, but we didn't want to do that. So we could either do it in two passes or what. But as we were messing around with it, we realized, like, fuck it, it doesn't have to all be crystal sharp, right? It can be like, we can just have him turn this way a little bit, and this can be a little bit out of focus because that person is a foot farther away from us, supposedly, right? So, we found ways to play around and improvise on the spot. And yeah. And also, we were taking big swings at a lot of things. So sometimes it was an improvisation of like, well, whoa, this thing did not work. What do we do instead? You know? So
Well, it all worked in the end. It's a
yeah,
really unique series. So thank you so much for sitting here and
thanks
discussing
a
with
lot.
me.
Thanks a lot.